should know by the way you parked your car sideways that it wouldn't last. See, you're the kind of person that believes in making out once, love them and leave them fast.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I've been doing Throwback Thursday. I've been talking about my favourite music albums. So number 34 is this album by Prince. This you can see is the original version, which was only a two-sided version of the album, which first came out, and then it was the double-sided album, which is with two records in it. See the difference? Then they actually used this actual idea for Little Red Corvette as a single as well, using the same artistry. So, why do I like Prince's 1999 album, and why wasn't it up in my higher numbers? Well, because as a double album, there's a lot of stuff on it, and some stuff I'm not so keen on. However, if you basically want to listen to a music album which has influenced house music, dance music, funk music in the 80s, pop music in the 80s, R&B music in the 80s, and the stylized idea, which is probably went on further from Rick James. Also, it actually came out just before Michael Jackson's Thriller did. So the actual influence of it is quite interesting. Now, for Prince, it was his fifth studio album, and it was the first to be recorded with his band The Revolution. Massive critical and commercial success propelled Prince to the public psyche. The tunes that actually were released were actually radio friendly, because a lot of stuff of Prince's didn't actually get onto radio due to his explicit content. It was the first of Prince's first top 10 album on the Billboard 200, and also it was also in the Billboard's year-end albums of 1983. It has some of Prince's most recognisable compositions: Delirious, which reached number 8 on the Billboard 100, Little Red Corvette peaked at number 6, becoming Prince's highest charting US single at the time. International Lover was nominated for a Grammy Award, and Prince's 1999 received widespread acclaim from critics and was seen as Prince's breakthrough album. By 1999, it was actually a 4-time platinum album, and following Prince's death, the album re-entered the chart. Prince's 1999 has been ranked as one of the greatest albums of all time by several publications. The music videos of both 1999 and Little Red Corvette received heavy rotation on MTV, which was also with Michael Jackson's Thriller, Billie Jean and Beat It also helped propel that. So let's just have a look at some of the songs. So 1999, the first track on the album was a track which was released to do with the idea of people were worried about the nuclear war, and people decided that was with that track it was very influential. Originally Prince sang all the parts with all the people themselves to the Revolution, but in the end they decided to do it like a relay race, which was a clever idea, very unusual. Nobody had really done that in the music industry at the time as a technique. The second track, which is Little Red Corvette, which is probably actually one of my favourite Prince songs. Little Red Corvette is actually, he wrote that while he was in his Corvette with Lisa, and it was about a girl who was floozy. That was the idea. But Little Red Corvette was also significant because it was what we call a crossover track. It was actually Prince actually came up with the track actually sleeping in her Mercury Montclair Moralda. That's actually how the actual, and Lisa Coleman, who sang the album, revealed how that came about. Little Red Corvette basically appealed crossover to the wider rock audience, where the rest of 1999 retains the funk elements featured in his previous albums, dominated by the use of synthesizers and drum machines. The album, however, is notable within Prince's catalogue for its wide variety of themes, in addition to the sexual imagery, which becomes something of a trademark on his previous work. Automatic, with its synthesized melody and bondage-inspired lyrical imagery. Again, this had like a video, was to a music video track, and there was this idea of him being tied up and actually whipped by the members of Lisa Coleman and Jill Jones, but it was Team Do Sexual for MTV. Again, there was all these different things about different concepts with lovers he had. Actually, most of this was made up, but it was also previous ideas. So side 1, 1999 I've mentioned, Little Red Corvette, and Delirious was the idea, again another love song based on a funk idea with some funk elements. Let's Pretend We're Married is basically another thing like the song Head from Dirty Mind, which is another abbreviation of that, and it's again the idea of this idea that he wants to have this amazing relationship with a woman, but with no strings attached. DMSR, Dance Music Sex Romance, was like a funk song which was based on the Minneapolis funk sound, which was the idea of him trying to get people on audiences. So in the 80s it would have been very popular. Automatic, another sexual song again. Something in the Water Does Not Compute is a ballad song but uses electronica ideas. And I have heard that done on a guitar by Prince as well, which is really interesting. Something in the Water Does Not Compute is about the idea of a jilted lover and the different things what have not gone right in their relationship. So quite interesting song. Again, one of Prince's probably less known songs for most people, but it's a very good song. Free, not my favourite song. This is one of the songs I don't like of this album. That's why I didn't vote it so high as Dirty Mind or Sign of the Times. Free is basically the idea of being patriotic and American, very much supportive of Reaganomics, which I wasn't very keen on at the time because of the idea of freedom in America. But again, interesting idea. He plays on this idea of free, meaning the idea of freedom within life. Ladycabdriver, which was a track about him falling in love with another cab driver, and the idea, it's sort of like side 4 is kind of like where he travelled to New York and started getting known, because Ladycabdriver, long track, like a funk little ditty basically, but goes into his idea of his rock guitar, improvisation. The idea, the concept would have been totally not appropriate for radio. All the Critics Love You in New York was his dig at the idea that he was in Minneapolis, and that because he wasn't from New York or LA, he wasn't going to be successful. So it was his little dig at the critics. And International Lover, again, very much like Free and Automatic in that similar vein. But I don't find side 4, and much of the like parts of Ladycabdriver, I find they're too long tracks, and I don't find them that interesting. But however, like I said, great album. The original format of the album, which was different, as I said, with this album, this version didn't have, it only had 1999, Little Red Corvette, Delirious, Free, Let's Pretend We're Married, Something in the Water, Lady Cab Driver. It didn't have, for example, Automatic, which again, not probably my favourite song. It didn't have DMSR, and it didn't have all the Critics Love You in New York or International Lover. So I found actually sometimes I prefer, if he'd released this one without the other tracks, I would prefer this Prince album with the 2 sides, not the other tracks. I think the other tracks to me were more B-sides, but that's just my own opinion. So yeah, that's my review on 1999 by Prince, which I think is his 3rd best album. I haven't mentioned Purple Rain in the top 40 or the top 100. It's not because I don't like the album, it's because it's an obvious album. What I want to do is get people to look at other albums. Also, if you are interested in the 1999 material, what was done at the time, is you need to look at the remastered deluxe and super deluxe editions. So this was done in 2019. There's loads of different 7 inches and different video versions and so forth. Also, there's some vault tracks with Fill You Up, Bold Generation, Turn It Up, some really good tracks. Something in the Water Does Not Compute, an original version which is very different. Then there's more vault tracks of Delirious, Moonbeat Levels, Teacher, which is a really good track. And then there's a live in Detroit on disc 5, and there's a live in Houston. So these are really where Prince was amazing. Also with this, it was probably the last album which had Des Dickinson on electric guitar. He does a lot of the electric guitar solos actually on it. Lisa Coleman's very much in this, and we get Wendy Mevelin coming in later on. She's more prominent on Purple Rain with Lisa Coleman. Jesse Johnson, he does some stuff on 1999, but then he had left the band by then. Bobby Z, Brown Mark had also gone by the end. He'd only done track 5, but he'd gone by that time. So yeah, it was very pivotal for Prince, and very good album. There's also some other things as well, which is How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore, which was on the B-side to 1999, and I think personally that is something what should have been on the album, and they should have taken off Let's Pretend We're Married, because I think How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore is probably a really good Prince track. Horny Toad is probably another one, but that's kind of in between controversy and so forth. So again, loads of stuff. I've also got all the other singles from this album, So I have The Little Red Corvette, 1999, Delirious, and Automatic. I have all of these as singles. Anyway.
You're the kind of person that believes in making out once.